Hey guys, so I want to welcome you to today's live stream. We're going to be discussing about stretching, or in other words, another way that I like to describe it is balance training. But before I get into that, I do want to mention a few things. I usually try to sort of um, give away some announcements of things that I'm doing, usually in these live streams, while I have the time. Just so you guys know, I do have a promotional event coming up very soon. It is posted in the group. It should be starting on the 17th, September 17th is when I'll be starting it. And it'll be a 14-day end of summer online fitness challenge. This, you'll basically get access to trainer rides for 14 days. You'll get access to all my programming for that trial period. You'll be able to message me. You'll be able to integrate all your workouts into your Fitbit, your Apple Watch, um, and also your MyFitnessPal app. Couldn't think of the last one. So you'll get all that integration, as well as just being able to have access to me, whether you have any questions about your program or if you need changes to your workout. I'll be available, and you'll get all this access free for 14 days. I will have a sign up where you'll be able to put in your email address and everything. And whenever the day comes, when the trial starts, you'll instantly get access that day if you sign up beforehand. But I'll still be able to take, as long as I have slots available, it'll likely be about 10 slots that I'll be able to fill of the trial period. So if you're interested, I will have those sign up soon. Probably, likely in the next week, I'll have that set up, and you'll be able to sign up for it. Um, so again, basically for the trial period, if um, if you've already done it in the past, I will probably limit your access because I want to be able to have new people to get into the program, and to experience it for themselves. So this will likely be only for new people who've not been in a trial before. So yeah, that'll be in the next coming weeks. I'll set up the sign up, and you'll be able to go through, put in your email address, and get ready and get started on the 17th. And again, it'll last for 14 days, so you have access to all of that. But I just wanted to mention that beforehand, before I get started, because I've been working on that as well. So let's go ahead and get into today's topic that we have today, which is pretty important. Um, and it's not often discussed, as it relates to weight training and weightlifting. So today we're going to talk about stretching, or like I mentioned before, in other words, balance training. So this is basically what I'm going to discuss today is basically a mix of different of the importance basically of balance training, and whether it is important for you to integrate stretching and things of that nature into your workout. So like I mentioned, so what we're going to discuss is how important it is stretching when it comes to exercising. So the first thing I want to define here is what exactly is flexibility. And this all ties in together when it relates to balance training. So flexibility is the ability to find the extensibility or ability to stretch a soft tissue that help increase the range of motion of that tissue. So basically, flexibility is how you can extend a certain limb, how you can stretch a certain limb of your body, and that flexibility, having a great sense of flexibility with that tissue or that limb, increases your range of motion, or ROM. So, what exactly are the benefits of integrating stretching into exercise? And the flexibility itself goes in the same way. Flexibility, stretching, balance is all kind of integrated into the same sort of process. Um, when it relates to talking about these subjects. So overall, the integration of stretching and exercise can help prevent muscle imbalances, which often result in postural distortions and poor bodily control. And it can also help the prevention of altered reciprocal inhibition, which I will go into detail because I know that's a loaded word, which is considered an impairment and altered link tension relationship of the joints. So it's basically an impairment of the joints, and to simplify in a easier to understand term. Um, but there are many benefits related to flexibility training when it comes in the exercise regimen. So, like I said, the important thing, and I've mentioned it in previous live streams, it always comes up usually, is muscle imbalances. It helps to prevent those muscle imbalances. So, when you're having a muscle that is overactive, it's going to help when you're stretching a certain muscle, it's going to help to balance that muscle out. If you're overusing a certain muscle and you're stretching that muscle, it's going to help out that muscle when you're doing those stretches. And that goes hand in hand. The muscle imbalance goes with postural distortions. When you have a distorted posture, you're not going to use a certain muscle properly, so it's going to be imbalanced. So that goes into poor bodily control. So the integration of stretching is actually really important because it's going to help with those muscle imbalances. So like I said before, I mention muscle imbalances all the time, but it's really important because when you're fixing and correcting these muscle imbalances, all in all, it's going to help to limit, injury, and it's going to prevent those injuries from happening. So I'm going to go into a lot of different terms today, and I'm going to try to, this is a lot of stuff that I've gained knowledge of and sort of learned over my time of being a certified personal trainer. So I don't want to give you guys too many terms that you don't understand. I want to simplify them in a way that it's easy to understand and how they relate into, flexibility and stretching. So what I'm going to talk about here is relative flexibility. So when a flexibility is not optimized, it leads to relative flexibility. So this is known as an altered range of motion that can result in the body seeking a path of least resistance. So this is basically almost in the sense an imbalance. You're having an altered range of movement of a certain, body pattern, a movement pattern. Alrighty, so I want to go a little bit into sort of flexibility training exercises too. I won't go into full-fledged detail with these, but I will sort of simplify them in a way that you understand, what these types of exercises do. So there are various training exercises that target many different segments of muscles. There's so many different sort of stretches that you can do, and there's so many various muscles that you can target, that I won't go into full detail today. But some of the various flexibility training exercises that you can do, to help with, let me go back and say too that when it comes to flexibility training, as far as my programming is concerned, this is the key part of my programming because the warm up portion is integral to an exercise program as well as a cool down. So flexibility more than likely starts at the beginning of your workout and at the end. So it's basically the foundation of starting your workout. So it is important to know these different exercises. So I'm going to go a little bit into detail what these are. So self-myofascial rolling is one of them, is SMR. Basically what self-myofascial rolling is you have this foam roller, and it's basically a lot of it can be used for, stretching leg muscles, arms. You can use it for various different things. I do have one here at home, but it's basically a way that you can help stretch certain muscles with a foam roller. Static stretches are just the normal stretches that you would do. I got some example stretches here, and a adductor stretch, and then a hamstring stretch. So these are just basically normal stretches where you're sort of holding that muscle in a position and then you're letting go, as well as the active stretches and then your dynamic stretches. And I'll go a little bit into what those mean as well. So, understanding each type of flexibility training. So, like I mentioned, self-myofascial rolling is basically it's a technique used for breaking up adhesions or fascia in surrounding muscles used with a foam roller. So, like I said, you're using equipment like a foam roller and you're stretching that muscle and you're breaking up the adhesions. So, adhesions and fascia are, basically a part of the muscle. So that's what you're using is help to breaking up those specific muscles using that foam roller. Static stretching. So this is pretty much self-explanatory. It's passively taking a muscle to a point of tension and holding that stretch for at least 30 seconds. So static stretching, likely if you were to integrate it into a training exercise, you would likely do it for 1 to 3 sets and you're holding that tender area for 30 seconds. So it depends on, whatever muscle you're targeting, you want to hold that stretch for 30 seconds and do it for at least 1 to 3 sets. Usually you want to correct, you want to correct sort of your overactive muscles and hold that stretch to help sort of balance those muscles out from your other muscles. Active stretching is using an agonist and a synergist muscle to move the joint into a range of motion. Agonist is basically the major muscle that is doing the motion, and the synergist is the muscle that is assisting in that motion. So active stretching is more like doing a stretch, in movement. I guess you could to sum it up in easier terms. So you have a specific muscle that is moving and then another muscle that is assisting that movement into a range of motion. So likely for the active stretching, you want to do it for 1 to 3 sets and then you're holding it for 30 seconds. Pretty much the same as the static stretching. So dynamic stretching is another one that we're going to discuss here, and that's using a force production of a muscle using the body's momentum to take a joint into a full available range of motion. So for this one, you're going to want to do it for 1 to 3 sets, and then you're holding that stretch for 1 to 2 seconds and repeating it for about 5 to 10 reps. So for this one, it's almost like doing a small exercise. I guess, to sum it up in simpler terms, it's basically like doing a small exercise. So let me give you an example here of what a dynamic stretch is. Let me sort of explain it to you. Just 1 second. Sorry, just trying to go back through my notes here. Should be a little bit more organized. Alrighty, so when we're going back into dynamic stretching, this is basically going back into this, you're doing 1 to 3 sets and you're holding that stretch for 1 to 2 seconds and you're repeating it 5 to 10 reps. So when you're doing this, Give me just 1 second. I'm trying to give you an example to sort of better understand this and to break it down a little bit better, because I know it's a little bit confusing when you're having both active and dynamic stretches sort of on the same and you're thinking they're the same sort of thing, and that's why I want to sort of break these down separately. So I think I'm back to where I was. Okay, so I'm going to go back and sort of break this active and dynamic stretching. So with active stretching, it's using the agonist in the synergist muscle to move a joint into a range of motion. So for example on this, basically, like, so this in a sense is, just doing a simple range of motion with a muscle. You're doing it not so much like an exercise, like, a normal exercise. You're doing it actively like a static stretch, or you're doing it like a static stretch, but it's more in motion. If that's if that's understandable to you. So that's basically what the active stretch is. I will give some better examples. I'll probably do a later video giving some better examples of these so that you understand them. But what I want to sort of explain, because I know that's why I'm kind of going back to my notes with the dynamic stretching, because I know this kind of seemed confusing. But when it comes to dynamic stretching, these are often used when you're doing warm-ups. These stretches, so like I kind of mentioned before, these stretches kind of mimic a normal exercise, basically a normal exercise session, but you're sort of holding that exercise. So, you're doing like a push-up. I guess, for example, you say you're doing a push-up, but you're holding that for a couple seconds and then going back into a rep. So you're doing it sort of like a normal exercise, but you're holding it. So that's the best way to sort of explain dynamic. Active is sort of a little bit different, where you're doing one motion, you're holding it. But then the dynamic is more like doing a specific exercise, holding it, and then going into reps like you would. So if that sort of makes sense to you, that's basically the difference between active and dynamic. And that's why I sort of paused for a second, because I know these terms can seem kind of confusing, but it's mainly to help sort of differentiate between the two. The static and the self-myofascial rolling are pretty much self-explanatory what they do. But I just wanted to sort of explain a little bit more into detail from what I don't have here on the screen of what the active and dynamic stretching are. So that's basically it for today. What I likely will do in the future, because I would like to go a little bit into detail with this topic, because it is pretty much integral to my programming. And I would like to sort of go into detail with certain exercises. Probably do like a separate live stream. I may even try to do that next week, because I feel like this would be a good topic to expand on, and sort of discuss these different stretches, what muscles they target, how you should do these stretches, and things of that sort. So I'll definitely sort of do that for the next live stream and break these down a little bit better, and show you some of these exercises. But if you guys have any questions about anything I talked about today that was sort of confusing, like I said, I try to simplify these in a way that's easy to understand, because I know there's a lot of large terms that you may not know, and I try to break it down as easy as I can, so that you understand them. And the reason to know some of these things is to help, sort of know the difference between each sort of stretch, each sort of exercise. And that's the reason why I put these terms in, and it helps you understand what these are. So thank you guys for watching this. Again, I will be putting a sign up for my online challenge here pretty soon, and you'll be able to sign up. You'll only have to put in like your name and your email, um, and I'll have that link likely on the group pretty soon. So I thank you guys for watching this, and I look forward to talking to you guys in the next live stream. And I'll let you know what the topic will be this next time. I likely will expand on this stretching and flexibility topic. But thank you guys again for taking the time to watch this, and I'll talk to you soon.